Okay, so the
Okay.
father as a model. Yeah.
The father or the mother, the couple, the parents are compulsory models.
Yeah.
After that, when you're 20, 25, or 15, you can select your model. You can
Right.
choose to have the model as the professor or the leader or whoever. But
Right.
when you're a child, you have compulsory models.
Right.
You cannot avoid that. And therefore the models have to be conscious of their responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, because
Yeah.
they have to understand that whatever they do, whatever negative feelings they show will be imitated
Yes.
by the
Yeah.
children.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you see, so this
Yeah.
is very, very important because it emphasizes the responsibility of the model, first of all, the compulsory model, and therefore all the subsequent models,
Right.
all the way up to the president of the republic.
Right. Right.
You know,
Right.
he
Yeah.
has to be a real model.
Yeah. Yeah.
He has to show that he's responsible. He is concerned by the people. He's concerned by the well-being of the country, and so on and so forth.
Right.
It's not very common to find that kind of a politician.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess sort of, there's um, since we've, I guess, last spoke, which was a couple years
Yeah,
back,
yeah, yeah,
um, we've had a lot of people taking on new positions in politics and even in religion, right? We have Trump,
yeah.
who became president. We have um, Giorgio Meloni, who's now the prime minister of Italy or president of Italy, right?
No, yeah, she is a female.
Yeah, yeah,
Georgia Malone. Yeah, she's a female. Yes, yeah. She's
yeah,
a very nice girl,
yeah,
and she is really doing a good job, I think, in Italy.
yeah, yeah,
And some others are not. I mean, if you look around the globe, what you realize is that all these people are moved by mimetic rivalry,
mm, mm,
and the closer they are, the more brotherly they are, the more terrible is the rivalry. Like, for instance,
mm,
if you look at Putin and Zelensky,
mhm.
actually they are brothers because they have the same, they are the same people.
Yeah,
All, all over history, it was the same people. They speak roughly the same language.
right,
They have the
yeah,
same religion, and they are close to each other.
right.
And if you talk to Putin or Zelensky about Philippines, they don't give a shit about Philippines because it's too far. You see,
Right,
but
right,
but 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 both of them would not let go of their rivalry,
right,
and they want the other guy dead. They want him
right,
dead, just
right,
like Cain and Abel.
right,
Cain wanted Abel dead, and
right.
so if you look at the situation in the Middle East, same thing.
Hmm.
The Arabs and the Palestinians and the Jews
Yeah,
are about the Semites. They're
yeah,
both they both recognize Abraham as their common ancestor.
right.
Therefore, they have some kind of a you know
A mimetic rivalry.
a mimetic rivalry based on the brotherhood.
Yeah,
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 you see,
yeah,
because this is very, very interesting because the closer you are,
yeah,
the more the mimetic rivalry is terrible.
yeah, yeah.
Because then it's he has to die and disappear, otherwise I cannot feel fine.
Right,
You
right.
see, so it's not,
Yeah,
it's just that I want to have like I don't know, I want to have a good deal, or like Trump, he wants to have a better deal for commercial exchange with China. But that's
right,
nothing. That's nothing. He has no mimetic rivalry really personal against the president of China.
right,
But
right.
he is now taken into sort of a very interesting relationship with President Putin of Russia.
Right.
He thinks that Putin should obey him, should take
Yeah.
his advice
Yeah.
and follow his
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 rules,
his rules
demands.
and yeah,
Yeah.
his demands.
Yeah.
And he cannot, and he is very disappointed, with
Yeah.
Putin.
Yeah.
It's more than just a political difference.
Right.
He feels, hurt. He
Right.
feels hurt, as
Yeah.
if Putin was, supposed to take him as a model, and he didn't take him as a model. Therefore, the
Yeah.
model is pissed, is
Right,
hurt.
right, 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 right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's kind of like the same thing with like with the gods, right? They say you should worship me, but don't get too close.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah. This
don't
is
be my
this is
rival.
yeah, this is very interesting because you see, for instance, for centuries there
Mhm.
was a very popular book called "The Imitation of Christ,"
Okay. Hmm.
the imitation of Jesus Christ,
Hmm.
and that was, in my opinion, a big fault because if you imitate a model, there's always a little bit of rivalry in that imitation.
Right.
And therefore, you shouldn't do that. And if you read carefully the gospel, you
Hmm.
see that Jesus never said, imitate me. He
Okay.
always said, follow me.
Okay. Okay.
And this is very interesting mimetically because if you follow somebody at each step, you recognize and acknowledge that he precedes you,
Right.
you see?
Right. Yeah.
And therefore, that you are imitating him, you're imitating his movement.
Hmm.
In other words, his desire.
Hmm. Hmm.
If he goes to the right, you go to the right. If he goes up, you go up. If he goes
Right.
down, you go down. You don't hit the hill.
Right.
But you see, you don't imitate him, you just follow him.
Yeah.
And this is the way to do it. And this is why Jesus, emphasizes that. And
Yeah.
he says to his disciples, he says, follow me.
Yeah.
Never said imitate me. So
Right.
this is very interesting to emphasize.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
see?
Yeah. I wonder, you know, because Christ will say, like you were talking about the when with children, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
everything that the parent does, the child, you know, it will in some form imitate. When
He will. He will. You
yeah,
see, for instance, if the terrible thing is that if the couple is fighting and quarreling and
yeah,
there is a sort of a tension, rivalrous tension in the couple, the
right,
child will be prone to imitate that later,
right,
in his relationships with other people,
right,
especially if he comes into a close relationship with a woman and so on.
right,
So he will reproduce the same kind of thing. So this is why I think one of the important thing is to emphasize the responsibility. But of course, this is not to aimed at making the parents feel guilty because they are not guilty.
mhm,
They quarrel, okay, they have a problem,
mhm,
but they should realize that they should modify a little bit their behavior
yeah,
in the perspective that the children will imitate whatever. Not only they imitate them, but they will imitate the relationship.
yeah, yeah, and don't you think it's like when Christ sort of does it because he says, well, I don't do anything. Everything that you see me do, the Father has taught me, or I
Yeah,
see the Father
yeah,
doing
yeah.
it, so I'm doing that too, sort of thing, right? And I you know, I think that's important because, when my babies, and they're little, especially when they were like two and stuff like that, uh, I would do something like I would put my hands behind my back and while I was walking or something,
They
and
do
I
the
would
same.
see they would do the same thing.
Of course, the imitation is absolutely compulsory, and now we have the explanation, the neuroscientific explanation with the discovery of the mirror neurons.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
mirror neurons indicate that we have sort of we are compelled to
yeah,
imitate. It's
yeah,
not we have no choice.
right,
We have no choice. Now, what we do with the imitation, whether we make it as a learning,
Hmm.
or we make it as a rivalry, or
Hmm.
we make it as a war. But in the beginning, it's based on imitation,
Right.
the,
Right.
the desire of the same thing, especially when the same thing is non shareable. No, no, you can't divide it.
Hmm.
Like, for instance, if the publicity has made millions, billions
Hmm.
of dollars exploiting the mimetic theory.
Hmm.
Because if you want to sell a coffee, you
Yeah.
don't, go to the streets with people, and make them taste the coffee and tell them, listen, look at nice taste the coffee has. No, you
Hmm.
make a film and you show, a prominent image of a model, incredible model, George Clooney,
Yeah.
drinking Nespresso, and George Clooney says, "What else?" In other
Yeah.
words, you can't drink anything else, and everybody, will then automatically, when they go to a coffee shop or something, they will order an espresso because they will say, "Well, I mean, if George Clooney says there's nothing else, there's nothing else to drink." In other words,
Right. Right.
you connect,
Yeah.
you connect the object you want to sell, you
Yeah.
connect it to a prestigious model.
Right.
Same thing for a perfume. If
Hmm.
if 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 you want to sell, remember when many years ago, you were not born.
Hmm.
They asked Marilyn Monroe, what
Hmm.
what she was wearing when going to bed,
Yeah.
and she said, "Well, I'm wearing Chanel number 5."
Okay. Yeah.
And the next day, all the shops in the United States were absolutely invaded by women wanting to buy Chanel number 5.
Yeah. It looks like it's explosive. That somebody needs to make a cartoon or something out of that. It's just like, it's like, well, that's the best. But I find myself sometimes I find myself doing the same thing. Now, personally, I would have chosen Jacqueline Kennedy. I want to know what what perfume she's wearing. I'll buy my wife that one.
Jacqueline Kennedy, yeah.
Yeah. But it's true, man. It's like um, like my car, it's an old beat up car, so I see everybody around me, they're buying new cars, you
Yeah,
know
yeah.
and everything, and it's got the these new frames, now the grills on the car, they're very different, and it's got um it's got electronic, like a whole computer in the car,
Oh
and
yeah, the Tesla, they
yeah,
have a huge sort of computer,
yeah,
and the computer does everything, including if you're tired and you're
right,
on a highway,
yeah,
the car will drive itself. You don't
right,
have to worry about it.
right, right, right,
And you can
right.
also, make phone calls. You can
Yep,
register things. You can,
yep,
even look at a movie if you
yeah,
like.
yeah, yep, yep. And it
So,
and it makes you wanna, you see everybody else having it, and you thinking to yourself, well, I would like that too. I'd like to run around and walk, drive around in a new
and
Range
this is
Rover,
this is
BMW or something.
right,
You
right,
know?
and this is a very interesting difference between the American mentality
Mm,
and the French mentality.
okay.
Because you, as an American,
Hmm.
when you see a nice Tesla, so and so, you say, "Okay, I'm going to work very hard, and I'm going to buy myself a Tesla one of these days, as soon as
Yeah,
possible."
yeah.
Whereas the French, on certain occasions, like New Year's Eve or before Christmas,
Hmm.
they they resent the fact that these people have nice cars. So
Mm,
instead of stealing them and using them,
hmm.
they burn them. And it
Okay.
is, you see, and this
Okay.
is what I
Okay.
call mimetic, negative mimetic
Mm,
rivalry. In other words, instead of taking the object and making, using it, they
yeah.
prefer to deprive the guy from
Mm,
his belongings.
yes.
And that is satisfactory enough for their mimetic urge.
Okay.
And this is very interesting. It's the negative mimetic
Yeah.
approach. They
Right.
and all they want is to destroy,
Yeah.
destroy,
Maybe,
and the guy, the owner, is then deprived of his property.
right. Right. Right.
So,
That's interesting. Do you think that that sort of comes from the way in which our countries were sort of founded? You know, the United States was founded on certain
yeah,
principles, but then, you know, France was, you know, the
no,
revolution sort of changed.
yeah, yeah. The
Yeah.
French, you see, is has interpreted the mimetic mechanism
Hmm.
uh, that I want what the other has.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next step of the reasoning is, why should he have something that I don't have? We should
Mm-hmm.
be equal. So therefore, they write on the everywhere
Yeah.
equality, equality, equality. But the equality, if you can't uh, make sure that equality is enforced,
Hmm.
then you come to a to a to another step, and you
Right.
say, yes, we need equality just because it's justice,
Yeah.
and this is generates the social justice.
Right.
And if somebody has more money than you, then
Yeah.
he is, justice is not there. It's not
Right.
just.
Right.
So therefore, there's two ways. One is to make more money so that you can have as much money as the other one by working, by doing. And the other
Yeah.
way is just to take the money away from him.
Yeah.
And that's
I'll just burn your shit up.
yeah. And you see the French people, they're like that.
Yeah.
They 10% of the French people pay uh, over 70% of the income tax.
Mm.
You see,
Mm.
because they are very rich.
Yeah.
But then gradually, as the France goes down, because it doesn't have money,
Hmm.
the very very rich, then you come down to people who are modestly rich and so on,
Hmm.
and you end up taking the money from the retired people because they have $2,000 or $3,000. You
Hmm.
say, oh no, no, they don't need all that money because they're old, they don't move anymore.
Right. Right. Right.
So we
Right.
can we can take a good portion of it. So
Yeah.
this is terrible because I mean it shows how mimetic theory explains everything that is positive, learning,
Yeah.
training.
Yeah.
Training, for instance, if you want to have a trainer to run or to box or to whatever to play golf or rugby,
Hmm.
but also it generates conflict.
Yes.
So it can be used as apprenticeship. It can be used as teaching and learning. It
Hmm.
can be used very positively, but
Yeah.
it can also turn into a terrible, terrible war
Yeah.
and desire of death of the other as
Yeah.
being, the ultimate justice. Like,
Yeah.
he has something that I don't have, so he shouldn't even be able to enjoy it.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
Now, how, how does one, because I mean, we all find ourselves in that position sometimes, you know, where we're just
Yeah.
like, man, I can't stand that dude. You know,
Yeah.
I can't stand him. Even the way he breathes irritates me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You just
You know,
you're allergic to him. You said.
yeah, yeah, you're allergic to it, right? But how do you, you know, the only so you know the only thing, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. You know, for me, it's like the solution is, man, like either avoidance, right? Like you avoid that person, or you become aware of the fact that, like, okay, maybe I'm getting a little, maybe mimesis is kicking in, you know, and I'm
Yeah, but since mimesis cannot be erased from your brain,
mhm.
the best way is to run away.
Okay, yeah,
The best way, the wisdom is to run away.
yeah,
It's just like Hans Selye
hmm,
developed the concept of stress, and
hmm,
he says stress. There's two ways: fight or flight.
right, Right.
In
Right.
other words, if you have a conflict with a rival, if you have a chance to beat him,
Yeah.
go ahead and attack him. But
Yeah.
the wisest thing is to just run away,
Right.
run
Right.
away, because otherwise you will be miserable, he'll be miserable,
Yeah.
and it will end up look at the world now. I mean, everybody is in mimetic rivalry in
Yeah.
Europe, in the Middle East,
Yeah.
in China, and everywhere. And
Hmm.
this makes the whole world unbearable,
Yeah.
unlivable,
Yeah.
unlivable.
Yeah.
And so, of course, at my age, I don't really care because I'm
Yeah.
here in the mountain, and I'm away from everything.
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
I don't have to work, and I
Yeah.
don't go out. I just, but for the young people, for my grandchildren, I'm very worried. I'm very
Hmm.
worried.
Hmm.
And now, what happens also is that in France and in the United States, all those young people, they develop, they have now their brain
Hmm.
has been exteriorized. In
Hmm.
other words, when they put down their phone, they're
Hmm.
putting down their brain.
Right.
You
Right.
see?
Yeah.
In other
Yep.
words, so they have such an influence of the social uh, techniques of in the internet, and then and the telephone, and the iPad and whatever, so
Right.
that they are living now in a virtual world,
Yes. Hmm.
whereas we, when we were young, we were living in the real world.
Hmm. Hmm.
We wanted something, okay, but now, you know when I was 30, 40,
Hmm.
I could remember all the phone numbers of all my friends.
Right. Yeah.
They were all here
Yeah.
in my brain.
Yeah.
Now I can't remember any
Right.
because they're all in my phone.
Right. Right.
You see,
Your phone is your brain now, you know?
my phone is my brain, so my brain is away. It's put it,
Yeah.
you can put it on the table to go to bed.
Yeah. Yeah. And they say that I read this article where it talks about how younger kids are they're starting to be there's a heightened depression.
Yeah, but not only that, but they are now less and less able to speak and
Mm,
to exchange messages by
mm,
talking sensibly, in the real language.
mhm,
For instance, in the hospital, I see two secretaries sitting next to each other. They
mhm.
don't talk to each other, they send mails to each other.
Wow. Okay.
They
Yeah.
could just talk, they're
Right.
like
Right. Right. Right.
away.
Right. Yeah.
And the problem is, if you can't talk,
Yeah.
what do you do? You get into violence.
Right. Right.
Violence stems out of the lack of communication.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if you cannot communicate, you just beat up the guy.
Right.
And this
Right.
is why, we have so many youngsters, 12, 13 years old,
Hmm.
raping, killing,
Hmm.
in the schools, in the
Hmm.
streets, and so on and so forth. And of course, if you add to that the development of the drugs,
Mm.
then the guy, between his phone and the fact that the drug is making him crazy, he's
Yeah.
just he just is uncontrollable.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's just uncontrollable, and he just
Yeah.
goes wild. And all
Mm.
he can do is kill people, and rape
Yeah.
people, and so on and so forth. He doesn't have any respect for anything.
Right.
And this
Right.
is why our world is so difficult now to handle.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very difficult. And for instance, when they ask me, I often answer that I'm not anymore in my world. I'm
Mm.
in a world that is not mine, and
Hmm.
therefore I sort of retract,
Hmm.
and I don't mix very much, except with very, very close friends and so on and so forth,
Right.
because
Right.
because I feel that nowadays, lots of people, they just, if I speak or if I say something, they don't understand. They don't want to
Mm.
accept it. For instance,
Mm.
I give
Mhm.
you something. In
Okay.
France today,
Hmm.
everybody is so, according to Macron, our stupid president,
Yeah.
he is so fanatically attached to attacking Russia and defending Ukraine, that
Mm.
if you say yes, but don't you think we could work for peace? Then you're a
Hmm.
traitor.
Mm.
You're a traitor. You cannot defend something as simple, basic, and lovable as peace.
Right.
If
Right.
you are for peace, it means that you want to stop Ukraine from defending itself. But no, I just want people to stop killing each other. And
Right.
this is what Trump says. Trump says it's terrible. They're killing each other for
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah.
No reason.
Yeah.
And that you see, but the mimetic rivalry is so strong and strongly ingrained in the brains
Yeah.
that they cannot stop. They cannot stop. They become fanatical.
Right.
And
Right.
this is another way, another sort of rule
Hmm.
that you have to bear in mind when you study mimetic psychology,
Hmm.
is that actually you have during your life many models.
Right.
Each model gives you something,
Yes. Hmm.
teaches you something, you imitate something. So, in other words, when they ask me, who are you? I say, I'm nothing. I'm just the patchwork
Mm.
of all the models that have formed me, that have,
Mm.
sort of constituted me, that have built me, that have
Yeah.
formed me.
Yeah.
And so this is why the basic rule in the selection of the model is two
Mhm.
rules. One, never have just one single model. If you have one single model, you're a fanatic.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
If you're an Islamist,
Yeah.
if you're a communist,
Yeah.
you have one single model, then you're a fanatic.
Right.
Second thing is, you must bear in mind that you must never transform your model into a rival or an
Mhm.
obstacle. If you
Okay.
transform, if you let your model in your brain be transformed by jealousy
Hmm.
into a rival or an obstacle,
Hmm.
then you're destroying your relationship and you're depriving yourself from the benefits you could get out of that model.
Right. Right.
You
Right.
see?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Don't have just one model. You
Yeah.
you become an extreme. You can become an extremist. You
Yes,
know.
exactly. You become
Yeah.
fanatical and extremist and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But you have to have many models,
Yeah.
and each one will bring you something
Yeah. Yeah.
which very, very special, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
And that is extremely important, in my opinion,
Yeah.
to make sure you have many models.
Right.
You have
Right.
to. This is why for instance, you have to encourage people to study many religions, to study many philosophies,
Hmm.
to attend many conferences. The
Hmm.
various people, so that you don't have just one single way of thinking.
Right. 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 You
After
get.
that, you can select. Maybe
Yeah.
you can decide that this one is much better or
Yeah.
suits me better. But you have to. Well, and of course, over the span of life, you
Hmm.
will meet people and suddenly realize they have been models because they have had a decisive influence on
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
destiny. You know, and
Yeah.
that is extremely interesting because destiny is the basis of
Yeah.
Greek philosophy. You
Okay.
know, the
Okay.
Greeks thought that destiny was the rule of our lives, and destiny would impose itself even to the gods. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
the Greek gods,
Yeah.
the Greek gods were very close to the humans. They have the
Yeah.
same feelings. They would, Zeus, the king of the gods, would disguise himself
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
transform himself so that he can, sleep with this woman which
Yeah.
is so forth.
He's a
So,
bad boy.
yeah, he's a bad boy, and all those the gods were all very close closely related to humans, which
Hmm.
of course the Jewish faith is no. God is commanding,
Hmm.
and you better obey.
Mm.
Otherwise, he gets mad. This
Yeah.
is why right now I wonder what God thinks of their behavior.
Yeah. I
And
don't know. I don't know.
then the Catholics and the Christians
Yeah.
have had this incredible message
Hmm.
that there is a connection between God and human beings, and God has visited human beings,
Yeah.
being a human being himself,
Yes. Hmm.
and suffering just like any human being.
Yeah.
But then that gives us a great hope
Yeah. Yeah.
because we know that we have a chance. There is a possibility that after death we have something else to look forward to.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, because
Yeah.
Christ went up to the sky and so on in his
Right.
in his new body.
Right.
So we have this opportunity to think that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and
We, we
it's
can be
very
hopeful.
comforting. It's very comforting, when
Yeah.
you approach my age and you get very old.
Yeah. Well,
You say,
even in my age, in your 30s, you deal with different problems. You don't know, we're dealing with, if I turn around and somebody gonna be right there in front of me. We're kind of, I think people in their millennials,
yeah,
we are sort of uh anxious about everything, you know.
yes, 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 yes. You're anxious about everything, and this is why this message of Christ
Hmm.
is comforting in a way,
Hmm.
because you say, okay, whatever happens, maybe there's the story will continue,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
otherwise you just dive into nothing,
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
and then you just it's
Yeah, you
quite
become, yep.
it's quite
You
discouraging.
can, yeah, yeah, you can become nihilistic,
Yeah,
a nihilist,
you
and
just say,
yeah,
and
yeah,
so this is it. This is it.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
Okay,
anyway,
last thing I want to ask you
sure, sure.
is about what do you how do you what's your feelings about the new pope that we have? Pope
Oh, I'm
Leo.
very, very, very happy about it.
Okay, okay.
He is a very apparently. I mean, his first declarations is a very good man.
Hmm.
He is taken this name of Leo
Hmm.
the 14th,
Hmm.
referring to Leo the 13th, who was the Pope of the concern about people and social problems. So,
Hmm.
and he is very much. He said it in his first words
Hmm.
that he is very much for peace,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
also he is also corrected in my view
Hmm.
the woke tendency of Pope Francis.
Right, right.
That Pope Francis wanted to give the blessing to homosexuals who got married and so on and so
Yeah,
forth.
yeah,
And obviously Pope Leo says, well, I mean, they can have an individual blessing, but I
mhm,
mean, getting 100 people to attend the blessing of two males or two females
yeah.
is something which is absolutely against our religion.
Right.
So I fully agree with that, and I'm
Yeah,
also happy to see that he is multicultural. I mean, he's
yeah,
American. He was born in
yeah,
Chicago,
yeah,
but his father is French origin. His mother is Haitian
yeah.
and
Creole.
yeah, Creole.
Yeah, yeah,
He has worked and lived about 20 years in South America and
yeah,
Peru. He
yeah,
speaks fluent Spanish,
yeah,
and and when he was he pronounced the prayer, Holy Mary, full of grace. He said it in Spanish
right, right.
in Rome,
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
Vatican. So that all that I like that. I like that.
yeah,
I like people who are, strong in their beliefs and
yeah,
at the same time very open to the alterity.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and this is why I think he's a good man. I think he's a good man. I hope he'll do a good job. Of course,
Okay.
it's not easy. It's not easy because you see now, the most persecuted people in the world are Christians.
Right.
Everybody thinks it's the Jews. No, it's not the Jews. It's the
Right.
Christians.
Right. Yep.
They are killed everywhere in Pakistan
Yep.
and in wherever, sometimes in India or in Africa. It's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
They're all
Hmm.
killed and so on, and nobody cares about that.
Right. Right.
Nobody cares
Yeah.
because the Christians, unfortunately, they don't complain enough. The Jews complain all the time.
Right. They know how to do that.
They really know how to do that, and that you know that it's very important. It's very
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. 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 That's true.
uh,
That's true. Yeah.
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 No, no,
Well,
I'm
Dr.
very happy.
Oughourlian, I want to thank you for
Sure.
taking the time to,
No, no,
talk
it's
about
it's a
everything.
pleasure, Shannon. It's a
Yeah.
pleasure, and we'll talk again in a
Okay.
few weeks or months. Just send
Okay.
me a message, and we'll see how we can arrange it.
Okay.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Okay.
It's nice seeing you. We'll see you soon, hopefully.
You too. Always.
Okay. Bye
Thank you.
bye. Bye bye.
Okay. Ciao.